Hello everyone, this is the first lesson recording for IM1, March 16th, 2021. Where are we? We have two main topics for Unit 5, and we have just finished exponential functions. That's Chapter 8 of CPM. Now we're going to be looking at absolute value equations and linear inequalities, and that is Chapter 9 of CPM textbook. So before we get started on the absolute value equations and inequalities, we're going to do a quick warm-up review of absolute value function. Remember, think about this minion. Okay, absolute value is optimism because it's always positive. That means whatever the number is, it always just gives the positive version of that number. Okay, so to begin, what is absolute value of -7? Whether what's inside is positive or negative, it's always going to give a positive version of that number. That is going to be +7. What about absolute value of -7 plus 3? Since I know that this is a grouping symbol or grouping function, I need to evaluate what's inside the absolute value first. What is -7 plus 3? That's going to be absolute value of -4. Okay, the absolute value function stays because we have not applied it yet. Now that we are down to just one single number, just like absolute value of -7 here, we can apply the absolute value. Okay, absolute value of -4 is just the positive version of the number. It's going to be 4. Okay, what about this problem? 4 plus 3 multiplied by -2, all in absolute value function. Okay, so then how do I do this? Remember, we need to evaluate what's inside the absolute value function first. So we need to do the inside. Do we do 4 plus 3 or do we do 3 times 2 -2 first? Multiplication or addition first? Multiplication is always before addition. So we need to evaluate this first. 3 times -2. 3 times -2 is -6. And to that we are adding 4. Okay, so it's 4 plus -6, or this is same as 4 minus 6, and that, but we still have the absolute value symbol because we have not applied it yet. Okay, so but then we need to evaluate what's inside, and 4 minus 6 is -2. And then since we just have one value inside the absolute value function, this is when you are ready to evaluate or use absolute value function and get rid of the simple sign. What is absolute value of -2? Remember, whether it's positive or negative, it always just gives the positive version of that number, which is 2. So the final answer is going to be 2 here. Next up, -5 multiplied by -8 plus 10 absolute value. Okay, so -5 is not inside the absolute value function. That means we just need to evaluate this, the inside first. And what is -5 doing to the absolute value function? Just the same way as if I have -5 with parenthesis -8 plus 10, the operation between -5 and the parenthesis multiplication, same thing here. There is a multiplication between -5 and the absolute value symbol. Okay, so now let's evaluate what's inside first. -8 plus 10, that's going to be +2. Okay, now, whoops, -5. Now that we have just one number inside the absolute value symbol, we can evaluate this and get rid of the symbol. What is absolute value of 2? That's just 2. So this is just plain 2 without the absolute value symbol. We have applied the absolute value. And then we're multiplying that to -5. So -5 times 2 is going to be -10. And that is my final answer for this problem, is -10. A reminder. Absolute value operation is also a grouping symbol like parenthesis. So you do the operation inside first, then make the final result positive. That's what the absolute value function does. So with that, you're going to be working on card number 1 to 5. First card, are these two expressions the same or different? 5x minus 30 and absolute value of 5x minus 30. Well, I can say that b has the absolute value function, symbol to it, okay? So I think it must be something different. But what is different? 5x minus 30 could be positive or negative. It could give positive or negative as your final answer. But with this, whatever the 5x minus 30 is, it's always going to give final answer to be positive. So there is a difference there. So I'm going to say it's different, and then I'm going to explain my thinking there. Alright, then number 2, to convince yourself that they are indeed different by trying a number for x. So x is equal to 2. What is the result for 5x minus 30? So that means we need to substitute 2 whenever we see x in this expression. So it becomes 5. Oops. This becomes 5. Instead of x, I am going to put 2 right here. And I am putting it in parentheses so that it reminds me that we are multiplying 5 and 2. See, 5x means 5 multiplied by x. So that's why I'm putting it in parentheses, minus 30. So this is same as 5 times 2, which is 10, minus 30. And 10 minus 30 is negative 20. What about the absolute value of 5x minus 30? Well, we still have the absolute value. The only difference is we have the absolute value symbol. Okay, so this, what's inside is still the same, 5x minus 30. 5 times 2 is 10 minus 30. And then 10 minus 30 is negative 20. And now that I just have one number inside the absolute value symbol, okay, it's not an expression, it's just a number, then I can apply the absolute value function and give the positive version of whatever the number is. It's negative 20, so it's going to be positive 20. Notice that the answers are different. The first one is negative 20, the second one is positive 20. They are two different numbers, so indeed they are different. What about number 3? Okay, if you like, what is absolute value of 2x plus 3 when x is equal to negative 10? So let's just do that. Okay, so we have 2x plus 3 when x is equal to negative 10. That means whenever I see a x, I'm going to replace it with negative 10 in parentheses. I do that so that I remember we're talking about 2x, and so we're really talking about 2 multiplied by negative 10 plus 3, and that is simplifies to 2 multiplied by negative 10. Remember, multiplication before addition and subtraction. So 2 times negative 10 is negative 20 plus 3. And what is negative 20 plus 3? That's going to be negative 17. Okay, now that I am down to just one single number inside the absolute value symbol, I can apply the absolute value symbol. Oops. Let me get rid of you. And I don't know. And that's going to be, what is absolute value of negative 17? That's just going to be positive 17. It's just a positive version of it. So the final answer for the here you would enter is 17. Okay. Then let's try the next. What is 3 multiplied by the absolute value of negative 2x plus 3 when x is equal to 5? I'm actually going to do my work here. So that's going to be 3 multiplied by negative 2 times, instead of writing x, I am going to write the value of x, which is 5 in parentheses, plus 3. So that is same as 3 absolute value of, now let's evaluate what's inside the parenthesis first, or absolute value first. Negative 2 times 5 is going to be negative 10 plus 3. Okay, so again we need to evaluate what's inside the absolute value function. Negative 10 plus 3. What's negative 10 plus 3? That's negative 7. Okay, now that I just have the one value inside the absolute value function, then that's when I apply the absolute value. What is the absolute value of negative 7? That's just positive 7. And what is the operation between 3 and the absolute value? That is multiplication, so it's 3 multiplied by 7, which is 21. So my final answer here is 21. Now we're talking about card number 5, solving equations with absolute value operator. Now we will start thinking about the reverse problem. Okay, so we can certainly evaluate when the x value is given. But if I have a problem that asks what number when put into 3 absolute value of negative 2x plus 3 close absolute value will give the result of 51. What's your initial thought on how to approach this? I'm going to leave it to you to think about it, okay, and then put in whatever you feel is appropriate. So summarizing what we should have discovered from our Desmos activity, we know how to solve 3x plus 5 is equal to 15. But now we are going to learn how to solve absolute value of 3x plus 5 is equal to 15. Okay, and before we do that, let's do some more basic thinking. Okay, if I said some number, absolute value of some number is equal to 5, can you tell me in private chat, what do you think is that unknown number is? What do you think that question mark is? Well, since I know that absolute value of 5 is equal to 5, I know that is true. But I also know the absolute value of negative 5 is also equal to 5. That is also true as well. So we actually have two different possibilities. That question mark could be positive 5 or it could be negative 5 here, because if I have positive 5 inside the absolute value, that's going to give a 5 as the final answer. But if I also have negative 5 as my absolute value of that number, it's also going to be positive 5. So we have two possibilities when you're dealing with absolute value operation. Now I want you to tell me in private chat, if I have x is equal to 20, what are the values of x? What could x be that would give 20, positive 20 as the final answer? Well, I know that x could be 20. If I have absolute value of 20, absolute value of 20 is 20. But what about absolute value of negative 20? If I have negative 20 in here, absolute value of negative 20 is also 20. Okay, so again, this equation has two solutions, two different possibilities for x. So you need to start thinking about, there are positive and negative version. What's inside could be positive or negative, but it's still going to give the same answer. So then what if I have x plus 4, absolute value of x plus 4 is equal to 30? Okay, and we are being asked what value is x that will make this equation true. So to start off with, I'm just going to put that expression x plus 4 into the box. And I can say that that box could be positive 3, 30, or it could be negative 30. Because whether it's positive 30 or not, it's still going to, once you apply the absolute value, it's still going to give 30 as your final answer, because absolute value of negative 30 is also 30. So then we can put away the x plus 4 is equal to 30, and so then we can replace this. We can open the box and reveal that x plus 4 is 30, or x plus 4 is equal to negative 30. And from there, what do I do? This is one-step equation. I want to find what x is, so I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. and that leaves me with x is equal to 26, and subtract 4 and x is